Can you hear me? Have you ever wondered what it takes to get into air gunning? Well, we're gonna talk about that right today. I'm the Dollar Sportsman. Thank you for watching. We're here in my office, and we're gonna go through the steps to becoming an air gun addict and what that looks like. In reality, what does it take? What do you need to get into air gunning? We'll get right to that. Guys, a very special thank you to Zan Projectiles. I've got some Zans right here. They sponsor our channel because they make really fantastic slugs. These are the 30 cal 54 grain slugs that I've been shooting out of the FX Dynamic, and they are awesome and they work extremely well. So if you need some good slugs that work well in just about every air gun, check them out, zanprojectiles.com. There you are. Also, a very special thank you to Utah AIRGUNS for being fantastic. They sponsor our channel, and those guys are just stupid fun. But they're not stupid, they are fun. Stupid fun. Anyway, we really appreciate those guys. They have sponsored a lot of my competition air guns over the years because they're just cool like that, and their air guns work really well. And if you have any questions, you can ask them, especially ask Travis, just to pester him, because he's got the mutton chops of power. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well then you'd better go figure that out, because it's worth it. Thanks, Travis. UtahAirGuns.com. We love those guys. Thank you very much. There is a link below. Now, guys, people ask me all the time. They're like, hey, Noor, what do I need to get into air guns? Or they say, hey, Noor, I want to go hunting, but it's on property where there's a residential zone, and I know you're an air gunner. What do you want to do? So I figured I'd make this quick video explaining the basics to that. So let's start off with the gateway drug, which are break barrel air guns. My good friends at Gammo actually sent me these. These are the new gen. I haven't done a lot of break barrel stuff in a long time because Utah laws don't allow you to hunt with break barrels, officially anyway, except if it's on private property and doing pest control or unregulated animals. But yeah, the hunting regulations are weird here. I've used these plenty to hunt rabbits and squirrels and such in Arizona, and I had no issue, and they worked fantastic. So that's why I haven't touched the break barrels very much recently, but these were my great gateway drugs. This right here is the Viper. It's a variant of the Maxim. I started with Gammo break barrel guns, and I got into these swarm guns because they have 10-shot capacities, and I thought that was really cool. And all you need is nothing. You just need this. You need pellets, and that's about it. So Gammo does have their own line of pellets. They work okay. Admittedly, they haven't been the most accurate pellets for me personally. So they work all right. When you get an impact, it works well on the impact. But in general, I've noticed that Hades, JSB Hades do work better out of these. But the thing with break barrels is you really have to test and find out which pellet is going to work well for you. These are 25 cal, not 22, but they're on my desk, so I grabbed them. So these do come with a scope in the box, so you don't have to grab anything else. They're cheap scopes, however, worth upgrading, but there's some tricks to that, okay? So this is important. A break barrel air rifle has recoil in both directions. And that sounds funny, but it's true, and a lot of scopes don't handle that well. So what do you need in order to make the scope upgrade handle well? Let me get into my closet here. So if you don't want to use the stock scope that comes with it, which they work, but they're not the best, right? Then what you need to do is get one of these Diana zero recoil mounts. Now these are specifically designed to take the recoil of a break barrel air gun and diminish it so that you can put a regular scope back onto this and have better results. So I've got a new Element Helix. This is the most budget-friendly Element scope. It's their Gen 2. Just picked it up yesterday from Utah AIRGUNS. So I'm very excited to test this, but there's no way I would mount this, even if it's airgun rated, by the way, because most scopes say, yes, we can handle airgun recoil, and you still end up breaking the scope. It's not the scope's fault, it's just the recoil. So I wouldn't mount that onto my break barrels unless I had this zero recoil mount. So there you go, you can pick these up. Diana makes them. Airgun Depot does stock these. This is where I pick them up. There is a link below. I am an affiliate with Airgun Depot, so if you want to pick any of these up, you can. Now, suppose you get tired of only going about 600 plus feet per second here in the mountains. 650 to 700 down in lower elevations, because that is another thing about break barrels. The elevation changes your velocity. because of air pressure. So if you go up into the mountains, you're going to have less velocity because of the air pressure, or less air pressure specifically. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. So that's another reason why I don't shoot brake barrels as much in Utah, because I have much less velocity at 4,600 feet than I did when I was down at 1,200 feet in Arizona. So there is that, consider that. But still, they're fun. But if you get tired of having that low velocity, you could go up to something like a Magnum. This is much more power. Now the disadvantage to that is your elbow is gonna feel it when you're braking this thing over and over again to shoot. Not everybody can deal with the Magnum pressure. Keep that in mind. It is a lot of recoil as well. You definitely have to learn how to properly hold a brake barrel and shoot it right in order to manage that recoil, because it is tough. So without getting into all the details of how to shoot a brake barrel, suppose you want to upgrade next, and this is exactly the addiction trail that I went down as an air gunner, and you get into PCP, pre-charged pneumatic air guns. Not that kind of PCP, guys. Get your mind out of the gutter. So here we've got the Air Venturi Avenge X. This is the carbine version. This is the short version. It does come in longer, but this thing is fun. You can pick up an Avenge X for, now we're talking almost double the cost, right? Some brake barrels go $100 to $200. The Swarm series goes $200 to $300. And I'm a big fan of the Swarm series. Now we're getting up into the 500s, right, with a PCP. Now this does not normally come with a scope. So now you're gonna go pick up a scope as well, and you've got a fantastic air rifle. But how are you gonna fill it? How are you actually gonna shoot it? And that's a good point that a lot of people miss when they're considering getting into air guns. You need to have an air supply, right? And there are a few different ways to do that. Now, number one is a pump. You could get a pump, boom. There's your pump. These are 4,500 PSI pumps. These are not bicycle pumps, guys. That's very important to understand. It looks like it, but this is 4,500 PSI, and you can pick these up. There is a link below as well if you want one. And they work well, but they require a lot of maintenance. As I've learned from experience, I had one pump fail that I didn't maintain or touch for a couple of years, and it can be really tough. In fact, I've got the #1 Google search video of how many pumps does it take to fill an Umarex gauntlet, which is over 200, and we didn't pump it very well, we didn't go slow, and it was a workout, let me tell you. So if you really want to work your back out, get a pump. The advantage of these is they are cheap. They're like 130 bucks, something like that. Again, a lot more than a bicycle pump, but they work well for the most part if you maintain them properly. Now, suppose, however, you get a nice good sized PCP. This is the carbine version, so it has a smaller barrel on it, more friendly to pumps. But maybe you don't want something that's friendly to pumps. So this is the Umarex Zelos 25 cal. It has a larger bottle on it. Sorry if I said barrel earlier, I meant bottle. And this is going to be a little more difficult to pump up effectively with just this. The same thing is true with the original Gauntlet. It took a lot of pumps. And that gets tiresome fast. So the next recommendation is get an air tank. This right here is an Air Marksman air tank. And it is very, very effective. Now, let me pull this out of the bag real quick. Carbon fiber air tank right there, 4,500 PSI. You do need to get these recertified every 5 years. Now, when I originally started air gunning, I actually started with a scuba tank that I found for 50 bucks. Used from somebody, and then I went and got it recertified for another 50 bucks at a dive shop. And then in addition to that, you need the little component on the top like this that actually allows you to put air in at high rates. Talking 4,500 PSI. Now, a scuba tank often will only go up to 3,000 PSI or 3,600 PSI. And that was a disadvantage for me because I started getting into air guns that held more pressure. Like, for example, the Avenge X, that goes up to 4,150 PSI. And that's why I got into carbon fiber bottles, because they go up to 4,500. And that was the most effective for my shooting. Now, I do shoot air guns a lot, and if you expect to shoot air guns a lot, you're going to need a bottle to go with you. That's the fastest way to refill, especially in our day and age where some air guns can shoot 75 to 100 shots, like the FX impacts, or a lot of them only shoot 20 to 30, like the Zelos or the Avenge X, depending on the bottle configuration that you order. So it's very important to have a tank with you so that you can refill quickly. And when I'm out in the field, I always have a tank too. Now you can get a little buddy tank. It's much smaller. I have one, and you can put that in a backpack. So if you're hunting, if you're out in the woods walking around, you can bring that little tank with you. Still 4,500 PSI and still effective at getting at least 2 or 3 fills into your air gun while you hunt. So there's that. Once again, back to the optics, you will need a scope if you're getting into a pre-charged pneumatic air gun. So I've used Athlon scopes aplenty. I've started getting into Element scopes because they make really good scopes. And the Element scopes happen to track extremely well. So this is the new gen Helix. Again, I am excited to get this out and to test it, put it through its paces, get the full review. But it is a professional scope that you can put on firearms and air guns. And the PCPs do not have that same sort of double recoil. In fact, they hardly have any recoil at all. So you should not be breaking scopes on PCPs. So you're gonna need a scope, you're gonna need some mounts, some scope mounts. And in addition, what happens when your air tank runs out of air? And this is where we get into compressors. There are 2 schools of thought when it comes to compressors. You can get a smaller compressor, and that can fill your air rifle directly. The advantage to that is that you don't need an air tank at all, but the disadvantage is the compressors are heavy. You have to have a power source like your truck or something similar if you're out shooting, and it does take more time and they are noisy. So that's why I personally recommend having a tank instead of always having a small compressor. Now, there are some great compressors in the market that are small, they're budget friendly, $500-600 for a compressor isn't bad at all. And you can go and have a blast. Now, a lot of people try to save money on compressors and they make these intricate cooling systems with budget Amazon compressors. Personally, even being the dollar sportsman, I do not recommend that. A lot of people have good success with it, but they require more maintenance, more control, and more careful watching so that they don't overheat or get water into them. And I just didn't want to mess with that. So I don't go that route. Now, the other school of thought is that you get a compressor that can fill an air tank. Now that falls in line more with what I'm thinking because I always take my air tanks with me out in the field. I want to be able to come home and fill them up quickly if I don't go to a place like Utah AIRGUNS or someplace that will fill my air tanks. Fire departments sometimes are willing to fill. Scuba departments are always willing to fill, but they have certain fill regulations and restrictions. They might only fill to 3,000 or 3,600 PSI instead of 4,500. So this is why it's nice to have your own compressor at home. And I've been working with Air Venturi a lot, and they sent me out the Krypton compressor, which is very effective. It fills up my bottles, works well in my experience, but it is the mid-tier compressor. So a couple of people in the past have told me that it didn't work for them. I don't know why. Mine works for me, and I haven't had any issues with it. I don't use it all the time, though, because quite often I'm at Utah AIRGUNS hanging out with those guys, and I get refills there. But when I can't refill, I just fill it up in my garage, and it works great. And I'm on my way to shoot again. So you can check that out. When I first started using that, they were like $1,600-1,700. Due to recent increases in prices, it's closer to $2,000 now for a compressor, and that's expensive. So if you don't have a scuba shop nearby or an air gun shop nearby, you're going to have to consider that cost as well. Air tanks can go anywhere from like $600-700 to $800-900, depending on the size that you get and the quality that you get. And then you have a compressor on top of that, you're racking up a lot of cost. But realistically, the advantage is once you get through that kind of buy once, cry once phase, now all of a sudden, pellets are cheap. And you can shoot to your heart's content because all you need is air. Slugs are a little more expensive than pellets, but they are stupid fun. And if you like shooting really long range like I do, you end up using slugs a lot. So you can do both, you can hunt with both, and this is still cheaper than firearm shooting, by far. So it seems like there's a lot of upfront cost to becoming an air gunner, and that is true. There is a lot of upfront costs depending. Now, I've been able to mitigate that a lot. I started with brake barrels and had a blast with them. Then I started with a scuba tank and budget-friendly air guns and loved it. And as I've continued my addiction on the way up with air guns, sorry, I should stop saying it like that. As I've continued my journey on the way with air guns, I've gotten into higher and higher end things because they're fun. straight up. But it still took me time to get into it, and it will take time for you if you don't want to drop a ton of money at the get-go. The scuba tank worked great for me until it didn't. Then I had to upgrade. The tanks were great for me, and then I live further away from a fill shop. So then I went with the compressor. All of these things have worked very well, and I'm telling you right now, why? Why would you spend that much money on getting into air guns? The straight answer is because they are fun. And you get way more trigger time behind an air gun than you do in firearms, unless you want to spend a ton of money on ammo. And that's the key difference. A lot of people see the cost of getting into air gunning and they're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. So are firearms. So is ammo, specifically in firearms. Boom boom ammunition is expensive. And because of that, you can save a ton of money and get far more trigger pulls if you go to an air gun. There are other advantages as well. You can shoot them quite often in backyards. Depending on your regulations, you have to check that. Make sure that your laws allow that to happen. But yeah, we shoot them in backyards. We shoot them safely on farms to get rid of pests. That's one of the biggest use cases for air guns. We have a blast and we just plink and have fun and we hunt and it's awesome. Guys, the world of air gunning is addicting by nature because you get far more trigger time and you have so much fun and you can become a very good shooter. Maybe you can even win a championship because of air gunning. So that's why we get into it. That's been my journey through it, and that's how you can get into it and you can have an absolute blast. So I'm the Dollar Sportsman. Thank you for watching. These are the basics of what you're gonna have to consider to get into air gunning. And let me tell you, it's worth it. I was a firearm only guy before that, and I could not figure out why I would need an air gun because it didn't make sense to me. I had firearms that I didn't touch except twice a year because I didn't have money for ammo. And some of you guys do have money for ammo and you're out shooting all the time, and more power to you. How much money did you spend on that ammo? And if you spent it on an air gun setup, rifle, scope, you're gonna spend that anyway on a firearm, air tank, air compressor. How much money can you save now? Because a tin of pellets is like 15 bucks for 500 shots, 12 to 15. Now you're thinking. Thank you guys very much for watching. That's just a quick rundown on what it takes to get into air gunning and the slippery slope that I fell down. And I'm so glad to be here. It sounds weird when I say it that way, but it's true. Thank you so much. I love you guys. I'll see you at the range.